All right, welcome to Boring Land.
He beat me to it. He beat me to
This
it.
guy's getting way too fast, and it's kind of fitting that we're talking about way too fast to draw because what are we reviewing today?
We are reviewing Sholay. Sholay. Now, I tell you what. I'll be honest. I was not excited about watching this movie because it was A, 1975, and B, it was a Western. And my memories of Westerns were watching them with my grandfather, and if it wasn't that, there was nothing else on the TV. We had one TV in the house, and let me tell you something. He dominated the TV. We'd be like, come on, fall asleep, fall asleep, fall asleep. But, I remember as a kid watching Dirty Harry with him. Not Dirty Harry, I'm sorry. I'm thinking about the same actor, though. Clint Eastwood. The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and the Outlaw Josie Wales. Movies like that. And it was... I never really paid attention to the films because I just wanted them to hurry up and finish. So I already had that negative connotation. As I got older, I started appreciating Westerns. What was the with Doc Holliday? It was Tombstone. Tombstone's one of my favorite Westerns. Unforgiven's another good one. But to say that Westerns are my favorite genre, I'd be lying. Now, The Mandalorian, which is a space Western, you even hear the music in The Mandalorian. It's kind of like a space Western as well. That's a great show, but that's because I'm a huge Star Wars fan. But I tell you what, after watching it, I was pleasantly surprised. What did you think?
I'm the same way as you. I am not a fan of the classics, the older films. But this has been requested so many times. It's got Amitabh Bachchan, obviously, who we've been talking a lot about ever since we saw Pink. I do like Westerns. I personally love Westerns. The book I wrote, Legends of Sturgis Braha, that's a Western. I think we need to have more Westerns out there. So I had no idea what this movie was before I started watching it. Right. I didn't watch the trailer or anything like that. And when I realized early on with the music that was playing, I loved that opening song, that it was a Western, I was actually super excited about it because 1975, like you said, it's 44 years ago. I mean, come on, there's so many movies that we can watch besides that. But I was excited to get into this. It's an interesting film because you've got to take into account that it's 1975. Right. And not just that, but it's also an Indian film. Now, what I mean by that is Hollywood was dominated by having all the resources and all this or that and the history. And I know Indian cinema has a long history, but you got to look at the differences in resources and whatnot. And so this movie, when it started, I was like, man, this thing's really coming out hard. And, overall, I mostly enjoyed this film quite a bit, even though it had that handicap of being an older film.
Well, I tell you what, that train scene is what sold me at the very beginning. And I'm watching it, and I was actually watching it with my son, and I'm like, yo, this is crazy because this is 1975. You got to think about it. There's no CGI. There was one scene where, and I don't know how they did this. There was a couple scenes actually where, correct me if I'm wrong, 3D didn't come out in 75. 3D was in the 80s.
So they re-released this. I had seen somewhere in 3D.
Okay.
So I'm wondering if the version we saw on Amazon had some of those elements
because
in
things
it.
were like jumping back at the screen, and I was like, whoa.
Especially at the end where you like that brick or that piece of wood coming up.
Yeah, there was
the
a
same
couple
thing.
times that happened. I was like, whoa, that's pretty crazy. But again, even without that, for 1975, when you're thinking about it, okay, there was no CGI. So that's a real train. That's people really falling off that train. That's people really riding those horses. And my son was like, Dad, I don't get it. So he should just do it. I was like, bro, this isn't the Avengers. This isn't superpowers. You don't have,
practical effects.
These are practical effects. So that was really, really impressive about that. Let's give a quick synopsis of the movie first.
Well, I got some notes here, and I want to, just a few things that I'm noticing. I'm starting to, when I'm watching these movies I know I'm going to review, I'm starting to write my notes as I'm watching. I'll pause it and type a few things. Going back to that opening number, I love that opening number. I love how it was all instrumental, 1975. This is before Star Wars. Star Wars really ushered in the age of instrumental drums and orchestra and whatnot as scores. This is before that, and it's not a whole orchestra, but you had a lot of string instruments from what I was listening to, and I just thought it was very, very strong, and it really set the tone. I also noticed the older style of not having a lot of music in a lot of the other parts, especially the parts where they want to bring in the seriousness. Like at the beginning, you see our man, what's his name, Thakur?
Thakur.
So when we first see Thakur, and he's got the blanket over him, there's no sound. But it wants us as the audience to focus on this guy. This guy is somewhat of importance. And so that was kind of an older film style. I really kind of dug that because We get so much music and so many shows and movies these days. I mean, it's all over the place. It's overlaid. So that was really nice. But basically, we have this film where Thakur is an older gentleman, and he wants to get these two guys. It reminded me a lot of A Bug's Life. You have these people coming in, and they're pillaging, and they're expecting these resources for protection.
Right.
And Thakur is tired of that. We find out later in the movie there's more than just that, him being tired of it.
Right.
And so he denies that. And he brings in these two guys who are criminals.
Right.
They're likable criminals, but
right.
they're criminals. And he had experience with them earlier, talk about the train scene,
right.
where he had him arrested because he was a police officer at one point, and then they helped him out, and so he thought, these are the perfect people for the job to help us get liberated.
Well, not just because they were criminals and he knew that they had skill and they had bravery, but because they showed honor. Because he told them, hey,
don't leave.
They said, let us out so we can help you. If not, we're all gonna die. He said, if I let you go, you guys can't try to escape. And they go through the train battle, they go through the gun scene. The court's injured, he's shot. They're both okay. They could have left him there. They did the whole coin flip thing or whatnot. But ultimately, they decided, hey, we're gonna stay. Even though they knew that means they were gonna go to jail, but they gave their word that they were gonna stay. So that made them honorable men. So he knew that later on in the future, he could count on them because not only were they brave men, but they were honorable men. And I think that's why that was his main motivation behind that.
And so he's going through that, and he's getting these guys, and he pays them quite a bit of money up front when you get to town, and the rest when the job's done. And so they go there, and as they're there, we have the meat of the movie where you have this evil guy, Gabar Singh, I believe his last name was, and we'll get to him in a second. But he is, like I said, just taking these resources, hard-earned, hard-worked resources from these people,
right.
And so he wants Jay and Varu to basically put an end to that. And the whole movie consists with that. We see character development as they're with these people for a long period of time.
Right.
And, the synopsis is what the synopsis is. Now, let's talk about Gabar for a second.
Gabar, I love this guy. You know what? He reminds me of like a Dr. Evil, man, from the original.
He's way more than that.
No. I mean from the original James Bond films. We're not talking about the Myers,
Powers.
Austin Powers. We're talking about the original. This guy was so evil, and some of the things he did was just for his pure.
Isn't his name Blowfield?
Blowfield, right. Some of the things he did it just for entertainment's sake, for that kind of value. And normally we talk about, a bad guy's got to have a interesting backstory, that you need a good antagonist in order to have a good movie. It just can't be a protagonist. But the thing about this guy was he was not only captured by our main character, the core, and went to jail, but, he felt like, look, I'm offering you guys protection, and all you guys got to do is pay these small tributes or whatnot. In his mind, it was justified. How could the core had the nerve go out of his way to arrest him? And then on top of that, when he arrested him, like, this guy went all gun-ho and cowboy, like, look, I'll teach you. So I like that part of it. Some of the things he did was absolutely ruthless.
Oh, man. So we'll get to that one thing in a second.
Let me go back. One thing I did not like about the movie, let's just attack it in sections. The way that our main characters, Amitabh Bachchan, Jai, and Varu get out of jail, right? They actually start planting bugs so that the warden can know that they're trying to escape, but it was part of their plan so that they could get out. But what was with that warden? He was like a Nazi, but he wasn't a Nazi, and I was confused about that part, because that was all Third Reich, the way they were marching and everything, and I was thinking to myself, what's going on here? Was that not out of place to you in the film?
It really didn't stand out to me because I thought their way of escaping was quite genius. I had not seen that before in a movie, and I was just so enamored by that whole thing, but I didn't really focus on the warden too much. He was kind of slapstick, right?
He was over the top slapstick.
He was a goofball who was trying to pretend. Wasn't he trying to pretend like he was all that in a bag of potato chips, but he really had no spine and none of this?
No, he had no spine or anything like that. And he kept saying, I've been trained in British or whatever. And I'm like,
but wait a minute. Put fear in them so that they want. I mean, these are inmates. These are criminals. You want to be able to instill that fear,
right?
And he was,
He was trained in England, right? He was a British officer or something like that, but yeah, he was like acting like a Nazi. That was kind of confusing to me, and I was like, it just felt out of place in the movie because there was even a comedic effect to it to me. So I mean, that's the one thing I felt was out of place. Maybe I just didn't understand that.
It's
in the comments, let us know.
We got to make sure we don't look into with a 2020 lens, I understand what you're saying, but you have a lot of that type of character development. It would have been so easy for Gabar to be that over-the-top villain that you would have had in the 70s, 80s, and even 90s.
Right.
And at times he was, but for the most part he wasn't. Going back to him, like you talked about, he was a great villain. I thought it was funny that he had the same shirt, no matter what decade it was or how long he'd been in the movie. He had the same outfit. But again, that's kind of something from that time period of film. And I mean, he was great. The part that really sealed it for me is I'm tired of when villains in movies they threaten, and they never ever carry out. What he does to Thakur, I mean, that really sealed it for me. Like, okay, this guy's got this is someone that you have to fear.
Right. So there's a gun battle, right, in the village, and our two characters, Jai
in the present day,
in the present day, and Baru fight off I forget. Gabar's men. And they almost get killed, and the car has a rifle sitting right in front of them and doesn't help them. So now they're upset. They're like, we're leaving. You're a coward. How could you have us come here and defend this village and fight this battle for you? And there's a rifle 2 feet away from you, and you won't pick it up to help us, pick up arms to defend your village, your people. What kind of man does that? And
I didn't see it coming.
I did not see it coming.
I didn't see it coming.
And he said, let me tell you why I couldn't pick up the rifle. And he's got no arms because, like you said, our boy Gabar Singh carried it out and he cut his arms off. I think that's more ruthless than anything because
jacked up.
If I kill you, okay, you're dead. Yes, you're gonna go through the pain, but ultimately, you're done. But if I maim you and for life, you still got to know I'm the guy that maimed you. I took away your arms.
And
there's no more, you know what I mean?
We're not even going to focus on the fact of how hard that would be to survive 2 limbs chopped off by the shoulders. We're not going to worry about that because this is a film. But that is completely ruthless. The whole time after that, I kept thinking, what would I be able to do without my arms? Not very much. Not too many things. And
he basically neutered him because you're a cop, right? You're this gun-ho officer. He basically neutered him. I mean, he cut his arms off and he said, I'm going to let you live so you can know you can't even do anything to me. That's ruthless, man.
But going back a little more, and obviously we're going to do spoilers, this is an older film, he does that to him after I realizes that his family's been killed. And when they show the graves, especially the grandson, I'm so glad they didn't lift up that sheet at any time. When he comes back, because we get introduced, I think it's the beginning of after intermission. I think that was before.
That was the first time I saw that too, intermission in the movie. I was like, what?
There's a whole lot of them. When I went and saw Syra a few months ago, there was intermission.
Really? Okay, I've never seen that.
Because when they were 3 hours long, and it was perfect because when I was in the theater to watch Syra, it gave me a chance to go to the bathroom. It was perfect.
Perfect.
But he goes back. He's not retiring yet, but he's going back to visit his family. His son and his family and all that kind of stuff. And because Gabar is so mad that he got arrested by Thakur and he's going to carry out his revenge like he said he was going to, he gets them all killed. And there's one scene where it shows Gabar right in front of the boy, and the boy's standing there, and I'm like, please don't. And they don't show it, but we see, he definitely killed him. And so Thakur's got all of that going on and the loss of his limbs. I mean, we can see why he's so stoic at the very beginning of the movie when he wants to hire Jay and Baru, because he's been thinking about this for quite some time. I'm not sure how long it is. I'm not sure if it was 15 years or something like that, but it was a long time. But one of my complaints about this film, and I get it, it's 1975, but it was so obvious that his arms were right here over that big shirt.
Oh yeah.
When the blanket came down,
there was obviously no CGI, and I mean for practical effects, what else could you do?
No,
but again, it's like we talked about. We didn't expect that that's what they were going to go with. That's how come we didn't know. We just figured he had a shawl over him.
Yeah, and I didn't think about so that shawl there was a brilliant idea to hide it. I did not see it coming.
But in any event, man, they at this point now we know why he couldn't help. So now our heroes. / criminals are back in Jai, and let's talk about Amitabh Bachchan's performance in this movie, dude. I tell you what. First of all, I didn't realize how tall he is. He's huge compared to everybody else.
What do they call him, Big B?
Yeah, he is huge. He's super tall, and he did such a great job in this movie, having that budding a bro, a bromance with his partner, you realize like, man,
definitely a bromance. Yes,
I got your back no matter what.
Friends forever.
Friends forever. And he's making all these choices and leaving it up to the coin. And then at the end of the day, we find out.
Dude, I totally called it.
You did not.
I'm telling you. I'm telling you, man. Maybe I've seen it too many times. I am telling you. After the second time, when it was two heads in a row, and even it landed on its side, which I thought was kind of a cool shot, I had thought to myself, I guarantee it's double-sided coin.
Really?
Because he's always the one that flips it. He always says heads.
Right.
And I mean, it's a brilliant move, but I totally called it after the second coin flip.
I did not. I didn't see it coming.
When they showed it, I was like, tell me something I don't know.
I didn't see it coming, and that really got me when at the bridge later on. And we're all, you guys seen the reviews before. We're all over the place. But later on in the movie, he's basically gonna sacrifice himself because Gabbar Singh's men are all chasing them, and it's like, look, that horse can't carry all three of us out of here. Yeah, so
Varu's got to stay.
Somebody's got to stay. Varu said, "I'll stay. You take the girl he wanted to marry." And he was like, "Look, let's just let fate decide, okay?" Flips the coin, heads, and I'm like, "All right." And then after, when Varu comes back, and you see it's a double. There was no choice about it. I died for you. That's insane.
But tell me that wasn't an awesome scene when Varu got on the horse or whatever he did, and he was getting vengeance, and he didn't care.
Lost it. He lost
boom, it. Boom, 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 boom.
He lost it.
That was awesome.
That was a great part.
Another part that I had a hard time with getting past, even though it was 1975, was the whole flying kick scenes from Thakur to Gabbar. This guy would fly from a 10-foot drop kick the guy. And then there's a few times he did like a whole martial arts flip up. There's no way that man's doing that. But he just kept jumping. And I get it. He's got no arms. What's he going to do? It's almost like a Holy Grail style.
Right.
But that kind of took me out a little bit. I have seen cheesier action in movies that are more recent than that. So I'm not knocking it down. But that took me out of it. Going back to the war now, I was reading my notes right here. I actually did like him a lot. I compared him to Mr. Bean. From England, just the way his mannerisms were. I thought it was genius how they escaped and they switched those. They made that lead pipe really hot, so they gave it to him. And it was really cool. But Varu and Jay, they obviously steal the show. I couldn't stand. I think her name was Brasanti. I couldn't stand her too much. Her talking too much was. Hold on. We'll get to that in a second. She was talking too much.
You knew what I was going to say.
And the subtitles is hard to follow. But I love the two leads. They did a great job. They were both very different. I think Amitabh Bachchan did a better job, obviously, but that's because I don't know the actor who played Varu in anything previous, but he still did a good enough job.
He was really good too.
It was great acting, great cast. It really set up the stakes, and then it crushed your heart when it destroyed those stakes.
So I hated Basanti, and I was like, okay, you know me, I hated her throughout the entire movie, and especially because you knew it was an indie movie, there were going to be some songs in there, and I'm like, okay, her voice was just so annoying, and even it was meant to be that way because you see when early on,
her speaking voice or her singing voice?
Her speaking voice, when she picks up Varu and Jai, even Varu's in the back, she's like, people tell me that I talk too much, but I don't really talk too much, and he's like, yeah, you talk too much.
I'm trying to read it, and I'm like, I can't keep up.
She drove me crazy, but she totally redeemed herself when Gabbar Singh's cruelest act. He says, okay, because she is now going to marry Varu. And Varu's been captured. And he said he'll live as long as you dance. And as long as you keep dancing.
You stop dancing, he's dead.
So in the middle of the day, hot sun, she's dancing. She's getting exhausted. She's dancing. And I'm like, okay. This is pretty cool. She's doing it. She's tired, but she's still dancing. And then Varu looks at his men, and what do? They
threw the glass.
They throw glass on the floor, these whiskey bottles and bus bottles all over the ground. And I'm like, oh man, now this is cruel. This is one of the cruelest things I've ever seen, and I love Gabbar Singh for that. And then,
I thought he was gonna get mad at him, but he's sitting there. And he's like, "Yeah, I like this side. I want to see what happens."
And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe he did that!" And she dances over the glass, and she's pulling glass out of her feet as she does. And she does not stop dancing. That is loyalty. That is commitment. And at that point, I became a Basanti fan again. I was like, you know what? I'll deal with the annoying voice. And I'm pretty sure Varu said the same thing. He's like, you know what? I'll deal with her.
But he said from the beginning, he's like, it doesn't bother him. He loved it from the beginning.
Yeah, he said, what voice? Or something like that. He couldn't hear it. But a lot of times that's what love is, right? You overlook somebody's flaws. But I thought that was such a cool way of Gabbar Singh being cruel, and at the same time, that was such a, and this is talking about 1975. That's such an empowering moment for a woman. Like, listen, I have no fear, and she even says it in the song, I have no fear, I'm not afraid of anyone. And when she's out there, she's dancing on glass, she's doing everything she can in her power to keep Baru alive. And I thought that was a powerful moment in the film.
Yeah, I mean, that was a great part. There's some other parts. Gabbar Singh with his Russian roulette with his men that he was disappointed with that got bested. I mean, this guy is totally ruthless. This guy is totally ruthless. He's shooting it. They all survive, and you're like, okay, these I don't know why I was rooting for them. They were bad guys, but they survived. And then he still shoots them anyways. That was jacked
So what happens is, guys, in case there's a off chance you haven't watched this movie, and I can't believe somebody else hasn't used this like in an American movie or something. His men come back after being bested by Jai and Baru. And he says, so there was 2 of them and 3 of you. And you guys come back to me empty-handed and you think I was going to be happy about this? So he said, you know what? He took his 6-shooter out, took out 3 bullets. There's only 3 bullets in here. I'm going to leave it up to fate what happens to you guys. And he spins it, and one by one he goes to the man, click, oh, you got lucky.
And he's disappointed every time.
He goes to the next one, click, he's even luckier. He goes to the third guy, click, he's the luckiest guy on the world. Man, what's the chances? There's only 6 shots in there. I pulled out 3, so there's 3 bullets in there, and all 3 of them have been spared by the grace of God. And then I did see that coming. He turns around and shoots them all anyway. I was like, that is ruthless. It was awesome.
The dude is hardcore for sure.
Oh, man. I can't believe we haven't seen him in anything else.
Well, again, 1975, I'm sure he was in a bunch of stuff. I thought it was funny. There was a line where it showed the Kurz family before they got killed off, where the one guy is eating the vegetables, and his wife makes fun of him. She's like, you with all the vegetables, always eating vegetables? And I'm like, this is 2020. People would love it if we ate too many vegetables. I mean, maybe not all of them in the store, but I thought that was hilarious. I thought it was really interesting doing some research on this movie. So this movie came out in the theaters in 1975, and it wasn't a big hit in India. But slowly but surely, it stayed in the theaters long enough to begin to get a following. Right. And in some theaters, it lasted 5 years. So I thought that was pretty cool. It became a huge hit over return viewings, and I can easily imagine how that would happen. This is a film you want to go back to with your friends and watch on the big screen. So I thought that was really cool. I also heard from one of our other viewers, they had left a comment a long time ago talking about how this was Big B's big break, and he had a lot of flops before that and a few afterwards, but this has really put him on the map, so I thought that was cool. There was just a few, overall I liked the movie quite a bit. There's a few things that I did not like. Did not like the way the family died, and what I mean by that is obviously I didn't want them to die, but that's a writing choice. I have no problem with that. What I had a problem with was when they died, they just froze, and that style of like having to be like really get into your brain that yes they die. Right. I wasn't a big fan of that style. I hadn't seen that too many times.
Right.
Some of the action scenes had a little fizz, but not a lot. Like when they go into and they blow up the tents of Gabbar, right, and then they just leave. I mean, I wasn't sure what that was all about. Maybe to scare him or whatever. But you have him dead at rights. Just take him out right there. There was some of the action scenes that weren't my favorite, but there was also some awesome action scenes, like when Gabbar's men come in and the rifles at the feet of the curb before that. That whole scene was awesome when they're hiding behind the different barns or the little amusement park rides or whatever. All that was great. It was a story that when the saddest part, Jay dies at the end, I felt that. I was mad about that, and that's a sign of a great film, no matter how old or how new it is, where it makes you care about those characters. I don't feel that way with all movies. Sometimes it doesn't earn it. But I was very, very mad about him dying. I was hoping there was some way he can survive. But, I mean, he got shot in the back. He was getting blown up. He got shot in the front. I mean, there was no way he was going to survive. Right. And then Varu's reaction, it reminded me of Wrath of Khan, where Khan, where Spock dies or whatever, and Kirk wants to get some revenge. And overall, I really, really like this film. Not perfect, but for 1975, I can see why it's a cult classic.
I was impressed by, like I said, all the action scenes with the horses in it specifically. Because, again, this is practical effects. They're really on there.
And what about the horses always taking a nosedive? I mean,
man.
I don't know how they did those stunts. Maybe the horses were trained just to bend down, but it seemed like they got impaled.
And you know what? I'm sure that somebody must have got hurt. Some of the stuntmen.
Sure hope
because
not. There
was one scene, though, and I don't know. Let's go back to that when we were talking about practical effects. I looked at it and I reviewed it, and a lot of time, guys, even if it's a 3-hour movie, sometimes it takes us 4 hours plus to watch these movies because we have to go back and read subtitles and Basante, she was speaking so quick, you got to go back. Wait, what did she say? And you end up reviewing it rewinding it a few times. But dude, there was the one scene when they're in the side cart where it was kind of campy or whatnot, and the motorcycle.
Kinda.
That was them, and I'm like, what? If in America that would never happen. I don't think that would happen today where
Tom Cruise would do it.
Tom Cruise is the only crazy person. He has to sign a waiver every time he does a movie. But that's them in that cart, in that motorcycle, doing those stunts. And I'm like, oh man, like, this director's nuts. Could you imagine if something had happened to one of those actors? I know Evan Butcher, like you said, was relatively new on the scene. He had had flops before that, but the other actor was pretty established. What if they got hurt? You know what I mean?
Card, yeah.
And that was a real motorcycle. There's no way to fake that. There's no CGI. I was like, oh wow, this is insane, man. I thought that was gutsy. So I like the fact that they used practical effects. I hadn't seen that. I didn't want to jump over that. And even the actors, they had to learn how to ride horses. They had to learn how to do these things. So you got to give the actors a lot of credit because there was a lot of physical acting in this movie as well. So, I mean, overall, I liked the story. The two parts I didn't like, and maybe that's just cultural. I didn't understand the Nazi British thing. You know, if it's British, it's British. If it's, for comedic effect, I didn't understand that. Basante, I know, and I realized that she was written to be annoying. But man,
she did a great job. Great actress.
Oh man, I was thinking to myself, if Savannah had, was a voice that talked like that often.
Don't say it.
Oh no, I love you, baby. I would be like, same thing, Nick. What are you talking about? My wife's voice. What are you talking about? She has a beautiful voice.
It was all me that said it. So let's go ahead and get to our grade. Now it's tough to grade this because again, 1975. Right. But I'm going to grade it. I've seen older films. Last year, I watched for the first time Casablanca and Gone with the Wind.
Right.
And I enjoyed both of those. And so I'm going to grade with a 2020 Nick lens. And I'm going to give this film, I'm going to give it an A-. I really am because I love Westerns. And I can see the high quality of this film being 44 years old. I think it does survive the test of time with the exception of the way the family died in that one scene. Everything else was pretty top-notch. The fake blood was, really fake, but again, 1975. But I'm giving it an A- because I can see myself wanting to watch this again. I can see myself listening to the music on Google Play if it's available. I can see myself, like we're doing right now, talking about this and telling other people, oh, you got to check out this this awesome original film, 1975. And it's cool when we see something that's part of your lifetime, your nostalgia, your life, where we're getting to the first time. I can easily see why this was such a big hit. It's not one of those films where I'm just like, I don't get it at all. I completely get it.
Right.
Maybe not completely, but
I tell you what, again, Westerns just aren't my favorite. I appreciated everything they did in the film as far as the action scene, the practical effects. Again, I had the two problems with Basante and with the Nazi / British, prison officer or whatnot. But for me, I'm going to give this thing like a solid B. B, I think that for me, one of the hardest things today is, and that's my flaw, is when I do watch these old movies, it's so hard for me to get over the fact when you see, like you said, the fake blood or, wow, his arms were there. That's probably the reason I didn't realize that he didn't have any arms, because the whole time it just looked like he had a shawl over his arms and things of that nature. And I should be able to say, well, think about the time period, Gabe. But if I'm watching the movie at the time, I'm like, am I thinking about that? No, I'm like, oh, it just looked like he had a blanket over, But, B+. I tell you what, one of the things I did love about this movie, was they weren't afraid to go for it. And so many times in movies, it would have been something silly like everybody lives and, they killed the little kid. I know they cut away from it. They didn't show it, but that's the reality. And back then in that time, specifically, there was ruthless, outlaws, the West, you know what I mean? Wild Wild West, it was crazy. And, even though it was Adam Botchin, which we like, no, Jai, why do you have to die? Somebody's got to die, you know what I mean? So there were real costs. There were real penalties for going against them. And I'm glad that they showed that. So I could appreciate that, definitely.
The last thing I'm going to say, and I'm surprised we haven't mentioned it yet, this reminded me a lot of Butch Cassidy and a Sundance Kid. The kind of impression that film made on Hollywood here in the States. And you have the two guys in their bromance, and you have like the one girl that one was going after. It reminded me a lot of that, and I love that film. So hats off to those that requested this one. We hope you enjoy our review. As always, you can always get reviews on Boring Reviews. They may not be the most exciting, but hopefully you enjoy them. We go a little long because we have so much to say about them. If you like this video, go ahead and give us a thumbs up.
Smash that subscribe button.
And go ahead and check out the Patreon page. We appreciate all of our patrons and those to come. But until next time.
Later.